Hello and welcome back to the Week in Nintendo right here on GVG. It has been one heck of a week. As I said last time we were here, we're going to be talking a lot about Age of Imprisonment. That is the latest first-party Nintendo game that everybody is playing. But in between that time, we also had huge Nintendo financial results. We know how many Switch 2s are out there in the wild right now. We have numbers for games like Mario Kart World, DK Bonanza, Pokemon Legends ZA, and a whole lot more. And there's so much to cover that I could not handle this alone this week. So join me in welcoming my co-host, none other than the man himself, Daniel Alba. How are you, man?
Hello, everyone. It's so good to see you. It's been a while since I've been on here. It's nice to be back again.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. I've been kind of flying the ship solo for the last month or so, schedules being what they are. I wanted to keep the podcast going. So, it's good to have someone else to bounce stuff off of. It's nice to have you in the co-host seat this week. And before I get into too much of what we've been playing, I told you recently, but I've told those of you out there listening that I've really been into Persona 3 Reload. And you were telling me a bit more about the game. I made it to past my first full moon, and I'm having one hell of a time. It feels like there's just enough of that metaphor DNA in Persona 3 Reload for people who maybe haven't jumped into the series but liked metaphor to really find their footing with Persona here.
Yeah, this is something that's always interesting to me to learn about people who are playing Reload for the first time, not the actual Persona 3 Fest, not Persona 3 Portable, but just jumping into the remake, because there's so many little things that I think they adjusted with this one in particular. I feel like those who played like Persona 3 Portable, like they still have a pretty good grasp of like the story and everything, but it's more of a point and click adventure and / visual novel, except for the parts of Tartarus. And then there's the original on PS2 that actually has, you can wander around the world. So this is like Reload is mostly the best of both worlds with a lot of stuff added into it. And I feel like I hear a lot of people saying positive things about it for the most part, because there's just more things to do in between the full moon segments. There was a lot of moments in between one full moon to the next where it was just kind of waiting for the days to pass by. But I think you've been fairly occupied between each of these days, I believe, right?
Yeah, like every day in Persona 3 Reload, I'm finding new stuff to do. So I do a lot of shifts at the coffee shop to get like my charm and my courage up at the same time. I've been working lately on grinding academics. So like there was a arcade game in the arcade, and I think it's Polonia Mall. It's Polonia Mall, where you can, it's like a quiz game, and that levels you up like by 2 points instead of 1, but you have to pay 3,000 yen to get it. When I'm not doing those, I'm like busy building social links. It feels like there's a lot to do every day in this game, and you kind of have a ton of choices as to what you want to focus on and level up. Like right now, my characters keep talking about midterms. So I'm like, I should get my academics up by like 1 more point before that happens, because I assume that'll be helpful, but I have no idea. I'm just having, in between trips to Tartarus, I'm having a lot of fun. It definitely feels like it was designed this way from the get-go. So it's really interesting to know that it was, originally a very different game.
Man, I see that every time someone talks about the academics, I just go right back to when I was playing this game. I was still in school, like in college and whatnot. So whenever the game would warn me to study up, I'd be like, I got to study myself over here. I think I actually, for the time I was playing that game, my study habits got a little bit better in real life, because I feel like they were also pressuring me to make sure that I was staying on top of those studies as well. That game changed me in a whole bunch of ways. Maybe not all for the better, but I think we got a net positive from Persona 3.
Well, I like you just fine, and so I think that I think that something good came of that. But I've been having a ton of fun with this. But you and I could go on about Persona and probably even more about metaphor for a long time. But I want to ask you, since it's been a while since you've been on the win, what have you been playing lately?
Oh man, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about it a bit more, but it was pretty much has been for the last couple of weeks just Pokemon, and then we've got Legend of Zelda, Age of Imprisonment, and that's probably pretty much going to take over my life now too. But there was a lot of Pokemon beforehand, and I've been trying to assemble a crew to talk about Pokemon with some people, especially since we both beaten the game as well. But it's been a little bit difficult to do so. So I've just been doing a whole bunch of post game stuff. perhaps some shiny hunting for against my better judgments. But it's I think it's a lot better than a lot of people give it credit for, given what the game is. But I'm curious what your thoughts of this game are too right now.
Yeah, Legend ZA is I love it. I had a lot of fun with it. You know, I got to play it a couple times pre-release. One of those was with you. And I had positive impressions both times. That's not discounting some of the stuff that people have said about the game online. I do agree with the criticisms about like the very flat buildings, the overused or reused textures, stuff like that. The lack of, you know, diversity in the music. All of those are valid, but it's one of those things where when you start playing, you just don't really think about that stuff. Like I'm not sitting there looking at a window texture when I'm in a Pokemon battle, you know. I'm not thinking about, oh, I've heard this song before when I'm trying to mega evolve one of my Pokemon. And the core gameplay loop is just incredibly satisfying. The town feels really alive. The NPCs have great dialogue. You know, if you haven't seen Daniel's video on that, go watch that. It's just a lot of fun, and it occupied me very well until Age of Imprisonment came out. But honestly, this is one of those where I feel like I have almost an embarrassment of choice for Switch 2 games right now. Like I have Age of Imprisonment, which is my main focus, but then I can do some post-game stuff in ZA. And then I can do, you know, I can play Ball Pit on my Switch, which is something that has kind of unexpectedly taken up a space in my heart as like one of my favorite indies in a year where we have a ton of really great indies. So it almost feels like I just have all these different things I could be doing. But yeah, Age of Imprisonment, definitely top of mind right now.
Yeah, it's an interesting time right now. Like it's so fun to just ask somebody what they're playing, and they could be juggling two or three completely different games than from somebody else. Like right now, it's Pokemon. It was Tales of Exilia because we just did a review of that as well. I've been pretty much blazing through that as fast as I can now because Age of Imprisonment is out. Everyone's playing something different. I think that's super interesting because there is that abundance of games. Some people are probably overwhelmed by choice, unfortunately, but I know I am. But there is a lot to play right now.
Yeah, and there's a lot of Switch 2s and Switch 2 games out there. This week, Nintendo, like I said at the top, randomly dropped like their financial results. I say randomly, but these are like planned out well in advance, but we got them and I want to talk about them for a little bit. Let's start with Legend ZA though, because as much as there has been criticism of that game, I think it shifted in only 4 days on the market, something like 5 million copies. Like I certainly did not expect it to be that much. That's one for just about every 2 Switch 2 owners out there. Now, obviously this is Switch 1 and Switch 2 figures, so you can't compare it against the install base of the Switch 2 strictly, but it's still a really impressive number. That's like 1.25 million units a day for those first 4 days.
Pokemon will always forever be just a titan in here. The brand name alone will move so many copies, no matter what people say about it. And as we already mentioned, like I enjoyed the game well enough as it is. I think there's a lot of good things about it, especially as someone who is a fan of Pokemon X and Y. Being able to loop back and see some story ends get tied up with Legend ZA, I think was really valuable to those fans in particular. And now we have news of the DLC as well. That game is just going to keep going. Those numbers are going to keep rising up, man.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see that because for me, Raichu is one of my OGs, like one of my favorite original Pokemon. You know, when everybody was falling in love with Pikachu, I was like, but look at this little guy. He's orange. And I'm happy that we get Mega Raichu X and Y in the DLC. I'm excited to see more about that. And I think it's coming before the end of the year, right?
Yeah, I think that's in December. I believe so. Yeah, we're going to be getting that fairly soon.
Yeah, good old December. I mean, it feels like we're talking about this kind of recurrent theme of there being too many games, and we have Metroid Prime 4 in friggin' December as well. So,
oh, no.
Yeah, I'm not ready. I'm not ready right now because I feel like I have a lot of Age of Imprisonment to go. But I want to stay on sales numbers for a minute because alongside that, we got some really interesting figures about how the Switch 2 is doing, along with Nintendo's future plans. 10 million Switch 2 units sold as of September 30th. I think that's a pretty crazy number. That's about 2.5 million a month since the console released. We have 90% of players who have a Switch 2 have also played Mario Kart World. I don't know if that means they bought it or if that just means like people were loaning copies out, but that's the metric Nintendo went with. 90% of players who own a Switch 2 have played Mario Kart World. And then we have Donkey Kong Bonanza shifting just under 3 million units. I think it was like 2.9. I can get the exact number here, but I think this might have been more successful than even I expected on my most optimistic turn. I didn't think Nintendo was going to move 10 million of them this quickly.
How do you feel about the fact that we're moving more Switch 2s within the first half of the year than the Wii U's entire lifespan? I know John's in shambles.
Oh yeah, John has to be like coiled up in the fetal position somewhere, just crying for the Wii U. It's such an interesting thing. It really puts the failure of the Wii U in perspective. Like it's wild to me that that's where we're at with this. That we have this console that's only been on the market 4 months and has outsold something that was out for like 5 years. It was, the predecessor to the Switch, and it just did not, the Switch 2 blew it away in a matter of moments. Also, the Switch 2 just utterly wrecked the Steam Deck's lifetime sales in those 4 months.
Yeah.
And I don't think the Steam Deck is a bad product. I just think it goes to show that Nintendo has kind of nailed this idea. And as much as the competitors to it or the imitators get attention from the media and on social media, the sales numbers just aren't even close.
Yeah, I also have a Steam Deck. I just never use I use it, but I just don't ever talk about it because like the Switch 2 is just so much more prominent in my life. Like with Switch in general, both families of systems. It's just been a part of my day-to-day, honestly. Like I've kind of started to use it more in handheld, honestly, as a Switch 2, just because there's the living conditions have kind of shifted things around. But it's such an ease of convenience, and like just the innovations that they made with the Switch 2 has just made me appreciate it even more.
Yeah, I'm lucky enough that in our house, I capture all of my footage for GVG in a dedicated game room where I have a couple TVs and a couple setups, but I'm also with you that I've been playing my Switch 2 a lot more in handheld mode these days. I'll go upstairs. I have like a basement. I game in my basement, which is it feels derogatory in a way. But I game in my basement, and if I'm upstairs with my kids and everyone else and we're in that shared space, I just play in handheld mode. And I find that I really enjoy it because the Switch 2 has so much better performance than the original Switch that it's like I don't feel like I'm giving much up anymore to play my games handheld.
It's just more comfortable too. Like there's a lot more places I can prop up the Switch 2 because of the little backing that the stand sticks out in so many more angles. Just holding the Joy-Con with the grips on it, I feel like I just fidget with the button that removes the magnet all the time because it's just such a built-in fidget thing.
Oh yeah, I find myself tapping that little back button all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been such a unique time because there's a whole bunch of people that are still gonna downplay the Switch 2. They say they don't need one, but then there's the group that just is in love with the thing and just wants to see more on it. As you were mentioning earlier, I'm excited to see when we kind of slowly shift out of Switch 2 editions for games and just into developers solely focusing on the system, because like I imagine for like the first year or so, we're gonna have companies that are just gonna try to split apart and capture that Switch audience as much as they can, but inevitably, I can't speak. We are eventually going to go to solely the Switch 2 era full sale.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because Nintendo said in the release of their financial results that basically they are going to focus their future development efforts solely around the Switch 2. They, in the same breath announcing that they've surpassed, I think it's 151 million units on the market for the Switch 1, putting it firmly like in second place behind the PS2. It's really interesting to me that that Nintendo is willing to, I don't want to say cut off that base, but I think they recognize the value in moving away from kind of supporting both generations. Obviously, the Switch is approaching a decade old. It'll be in its 9th year next year. and that has to hold back what you can do, right? Like it limits what you're able to do. Obviously, we've seen with games that weren't cross-gen, like DK Bonanza and Mario Kart World, just how big Nintendo can go with these. Age of Imprisonment, which we're all playing now, just blows Age of Calamity out of the water in terms of performance. So I think it's a wise move on Nintendo's part because it showcases the divide in terms of the hardware and what it's capable of doing and what experiences they can deliver on that. But I have to say probably the silver lining for me is that we may actually see the death of the god awful Switch 2 edition packaging.
And the naming. I'm so tired of saying like Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Nintendo Switch 2 edition plus Star Cross War. I'm just stop.
Yeah,
just
Super
give it a
Mario
title.
Party plus Jamboree TV Nintendo Switch 2 edition doesn't
Oh
just
my
roll
God.
off the tongue.
It sure doesn't. But no, I am excited to see what we're able to see in the future, and I'm talk more about the about what we're going to see performance wise, because the Age of Imprisonment really blew me away as far as like compared to the original Age of Calamity, and if you people who did 2-player especially and stuff like that, it's crazy to see the strides it's taken, and it really puts into perspective for me more than other games like how strong the Switch 2 is as far as like what it can handle on screen.
Yeah. The kind of oh wow moment for me so far with Age of Imprisonment has been game share, like actually playing it over game share, because it gives you, if you haven't tried it, it doesn't do split screen. The second player on game share gets their own individual screen and they can run freely across whatever map you're on without you. And I tested it 2 different ways because you can do game share over game chat, which is, on the internet, or you can do game share over local wireless. And when I did it over game chat, I got about 30 FPS. So cutting down from that 60 FPS, cutting the frame rate in half made sense. Like just if you're thinking, oh, it's rendering 2 screens on one Switch. So yeah. And then over game chat, or I'm sorry, over local wireless, it was seemed to be in the 40s. Like it was actually more performant. I think that just comes down to me not also running, like the game chat client, if you will, while I'm playing the game. But having that experience, I was just super impressed. Like I could just, it was like someone was in the room playing with me, and it ran way better than I frankly expected it to.
That's so crazy. Like I haven't had a chance to use game share yet with Age of Imprisonments, but I've heard like from you and from others that it's surprisingly competent. Like, of course, as you mentioned, performance isn't going to be as optimal as single player, but if it's a stable at least like on 30, then that's pretty impressive given what everything's running at the same time.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about frame rates this generation, and I've been kind of like a 30 FPS defender here on the Week in Nintendo the last few weeks. Particularly with people being mad about Animal Crossing still being 30 FPS, which I think there are like some under the hood reasons for that. But I think people kind of confuse like a visual, like high frame rate with a stable frame rate. And I would much rather have a lower stable frame rate than a higher unstable one. And I think Nintendo, particularly with Age of Imprisonment, has done a really good job, because when you're single player, like you said, it's 60 FPS all the time, except for in the cutscenes, which are pre-rendered. But it's a perfectly stable 60 FPS. I haven't found anything I could do that could make the frame rate drop. And you're talking about hundreds of enemies on screen pretty much all the time. Like in any actual major story battle, there's just bokoblins or shades or soldiers just everywhere. And you're just, in true Musou fashion, you're just tearing through these poor souls.
Yeah, I remember in the original, I say the original, in Age of Calamity, the one thing that really tanked the Switch was when you were using electric attacks. And the electricity effect, I don't know what it was. The electric effects is just what really made that that frame rate go down. And I haven't encountered our Gerudo friend to use her abilities and see, to pretty much be a stress test. I need to find her and be a stress test to see just how much the Switch 2 can handle. But I imagine that might be the only moment, because everything else I've seen has been pretty buttery smooth. It's surreal to think that this is the same like series, the sequel to the one where it ran like a slideshow if you had 2 players and you were running those kind of characters.
Yeah, the amount of performance improvement from Age of Calamity to Age of Imprisonment is just bonkers. Like, I feel like this is probably the thing that currently, and I'll be honest, I've not read any reviews because we're planning our own coverage and we don't get games early. So I've not read anybody else's coverage on the game for obvious reasons, hopefully. But what I can say is I feel like more people, at least on social media, should be talking about just how much Koei Tecmo improved this, because it is a much more pleasant experience. When I played Age of Calamity, I was really excited for it initially. And then when I played it, I was immediately taken out of it by how poorly it performed on a pretty consistent basis. And here it's the opposite. I'm consistently impressed by how well this game runs. Let me ask you this before I continue saying anything, Daniel. What chapter are you in? Just the chapter number.
Chapter, oh gosh. I know I've been doing like every side quest thus far as much as I can. So I know I'm past chapter 2. I'm definitely past the point where you see that one scene in Tears of the Kingdom in which bad things happen.
Yes.
I'm in the bad arc, basically.
You and I are in very similar places then. I think we might even be in the same place. I talked to Brandon and we had this kind of same weird conversation where we're circling around the point with each other, trying to not spoil.
I guess the best I can say is I recruited the Zora to my team. That was the last thing that I did in my playthrough.
Dude, okay, we're in the exact same place.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
So I can say what I want to say. And we're not going into spoilers here, so don't worry. I'm not gonna say anything about the story, but obviously you have had access to Zonai devices for a while now. And I was going to say that was kind of my stress test for the game. I started just abusing Zonai devices because I've been doing all the side stuff too. And, you can put materials into the gacha and get a new permanently unlocked Zonai device, which I really think is a cool way to incorporate that mechanic. But in particular, the mysterious construct from all the early game trailers can make a lot of use of those devices. So I just started like spamming, I have the electric one, I have the freeze one, I have the cannons, like stuff that, I kind of use Tears of the Kingdom as my litmus test. I'm like, if this breaks Tears of the Kingdom, then I want to try it here. And I haven't found anything, like any effects of any kind that have caused a hitch. But like you, I kind of want to see, if anybody has like a big AoE effect, I want to see that happen.
Yeah. The construct has pretty much everything. The amount of things they can do is crazy. Like they're just an army Swiss knife. They've got everything possible in functions, different weapons, different Zonai abilities. I didn't realize could connect to those abilities, and you can just customize and swap those out. They pretty much put everything into one single character.
Yeah, the construct is an interesting concept in that he, at least at the outset, plays very much like Link from previous games, from previous Hyrule Warriors games. Like he has 1-for-1 moves that match Link. But then he starts to get really crazy with some of the stuff that is not Link-like. And I'm really enjoying him. I'm really enjoying, like, I don't know anything about him. I'm not at a point where I could even spoil it because I don't know the answers. But Brandon and I were doing some kind of like theory crafting on where we think things will go. And I'll talk to you about that after the show. But right now, I would say my impressions of Age of Imprisonment are very positive. Like I'm having a lot of fun with it. There are some lore things that I think make sense and some lore things that in typical Hyrule Warriors fashion, I think don't make any sense. And I think that if you're a big lore head, you might find some problems, though. We'll see. And if you look at it more the way like Dragon Ball fans look at Dragon Ball lore, where you're like, if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. And you can kind of let that go. Then I think there's a lot to love even very early on. Cause I don't know how many chapters there are, but I imagine I may be a quarter of the way through the game.
Yeah, there's always, with any Musou game, there's always those bits that are a bit of a stretch of the imagination, just because, I mean, you're dealing with a game that has sheer thousands of people on maps once you get to the late game. And I enjoy a lot of this game as well. There's so much about it that I appreciate. Like just the things that they've added has been so nice as far as like quality of life as well. Like when I unlocked the camps, that's really cool. Like you can put different items in to like boost your charge, to boost experience, to boost like the amount of materials that you drop. So I imagine this is a very handy late game sort of thing when you want to get, clean up certain quests, donates to get someone's ability boosted or give them more health. Just a lot of little things that feel very friendly and respectful to the player that I don't remember seeing in any other Musou games before this one.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me because the aside quests in particular, I thought they were all going to be like combat encounters, but a lot of them are just like, hey, give us 5 mushrooms and you'll unlock a new move, or drop off an armored carp here and we'll add a heart to this one character. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of interesting. I kind of like that. And then some of them are bigger things, like you said, like you unlock the camp and you're able to then kind of customize gains that you get in missions. Like I went crazy in the beginning and just started spamming experience, so I'd get 30% extra experience per mission. And then after a while I was like, oh, this mission requires level 8 and I'm 22. I probably should calm down.
Oh man,
I like the movement speed boosts and stuff like that.
Yeah, those are so helpful, especially for me who gets impatient. This isn't really a spoiler, but one of the best things that I saw, because I still don't know what they do, the Korok seeds. I'm still collecting and just finding the Korok seeds in the middle of the map, but I'm just like, it's going to be so easy to miss them if all this stuff is happening and I'm trying to like stay on track with the story. But there is a way to have the positions of these Koroks be revealed to you. And so I'm just like, oh, thank goodness. Now I don't have to feel like I'm missing whatever the heck these are for. I'm not going to be missing out on them.
Yeah, as you upgrade the camp, you're able to unlock, like you said, the ability to like earn these kind of like, you can find where Koroks are. I was actually in the quest to unlock the Zora person. And if you've played Tears of the Kingdom, you're going to know kind of where I'm going with this, but they introduce the element of sludge on some of the maps and you can use water moves to clean it off. And I found a freaking Korok under sludge. And I was like, oh no, like you're never safe. Like you can search for these guys everywhere. So I think it's really cool. Like I have no clue what it's for. I think it would be funny if they were worthless, but I have a feeling given the fact that there is a prominently featured Korok in the game that they're going to have some core thing that is like really important to the actual game this time. And it won't just be like you get a pile of poo at the end.
Did you happen to discover a Korok while using the Korok at any point?
Yes.
Because yeah,
he'll say something about his brother, right? Like he'll be like, oh, hey brother, like when he picks up another Korok.
Yeah, when any other character finds him, they're just like, yeah, you found me. But if it's with Calamo, then they're just like, oh, hi, Calamo. And you're like, hello, brother. How you doing? And it's just like a cute little different interaction. Like, oh, of course the Koroks would know each other. Little things like that always make me happy.
Yeah, I actually really like Calamo, too. I did not think that I would like a Korok. And I have this theory that I hope is true. I'm not going to say anything more about it, but I have this like headcanon theory about who Calamo is. And I suspect they'll reveal it over time. But if I'm right, it'll be probably one of the coolest ideas that I think this game could possibly put forth. Like there is a lot of really cool story elements here. Like we get to see, kind of all the champions from 10,000 years ago without their masks and learn their names and learn more about these characters. And I think that is also just kind of a really cool thing because, with Age of Calamity, we got the introduction of a lot of kind of new characters that we weren't really part of the lore of Breath of the Wild, where here, these are characters we saw in Tears of the Kingdom, but we're just getting a lot more background on them.
Yeah, and there is a lot. Like there are a lot of cutscenes in this game. I was surprised like how much story I'm being fed here, and I'm just like, please go ahead and do so. I'm fine with this.
Yeah, I really like the cutscenes. I think it's really cool that there's a lot of expositional dialogue. I will say the one thing that I kind of dislike is that for whatever reason, these are fairly low quality pre-rendered videos. Like, they're 4K, but they're 30 FPS instead of 60, which is, jarring when you go from gameplay to one of these. But they're also just a bit blurry. Like, I noticed that when I'm watching them, I'm like, that's fuzzy compared to the actual game. And I think that they could have, I'm sure it was to keep the size of the game down overall, but I mean, I would have preferred they just bloated the game a little bit.
It's like they developed those for Switch 1 and just stuck it to the Switch 2 for some reason or another.
I honestly believe that. I think that may very well be what happened here. That because we're still in the first year, pretty much anything was probably a Switch 1 game.
Most likely, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. But
Yeah.
no, overall, having a great time with this game.
Yeah, same. I'm gonna keep playing it. I think this will be the game that gets me through to December 4th, where we have Metroid Prime 4. Which will be another big event for probably at least the two of us.
Oh, hell yeah, for me. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do because I'm playing this game and then the Kirby Air Riders demo is going to be out like from this point right now in hours. And then it's going to be the demo will go through the weekend and then the actual game will come out and then Metroid Prime 4 is going to happen. I'm suffering the from too many choices right now.
Yeah, I'm glad that I have you on tonight because I have famously been quite negative about Kirby Air Riders, to the point that I got some people pretty upset with me, just saying that it didn't click for me. But we both played it at PAX, and I want to give you the floor for a moment because you had a wildly better experience than I did with the game.
I think the thing people need to realize is I realized is as soon as I was playing Air Ride and City Trial in that singular demo, which was like not even, it was like a half hour total we played it for. If you are not a fan of the GameCube version, or if you played Air Riders, like if you go through the demo that comes out very soon and you don't like that game, you're probably not going to like it. You're probably just not going to like Kirby Air Riders, and it's fine. You can move on and play a different game, but I feel like this is a title that's really tailored just to me. I feel like I've realized I enjoy a lot of games with that kind of random factor in it. So I maybe some roguelike games, for example. But like City Trial is pretty much what that is. Every time you play and you jump into that, it's going to be a different experience, no matter who you're with and what you're playing, and your setup, your characters, everything about it. And now it's going to be online. So there's just so much I'm positive on for this. And then just seeing the directs, both directs, you put both directs together, that's like a full-fledged movie of Sakurai telling you about a singular game and pretty much everything that's packed into it. And maybe there's more that we don't know about, but there's just so much about this title that I'm just excited to jump into and see and experience. And like I encourage everybody to give the demo a try to see what it's like. Maybe you'll get a different understanding for it after playing it. And if you don't get a different understanding for it, then that's perfectly fine. We don't have to tell ourselves that we don't have to force ourselves to like every single Nintendo game that comes out. There are definitely some first-party releases that I haven't really stuck to myself, but Kirby Air Riders is one that I feel like is tailored to me personally.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it because my position on it was that I wished I could have liked it more, but I just can't. I am going to try the demo though. I totally forgot that it was happening like just moments from now as we record. So that might be my thing I go to next instead of Age of Imprisonment, just because it's a limited time thing. And I would like to try it, get a better feel for it, because 30 minutes at a show is not the best way to develop impressions about a game.
Yeah.
But I'll give it another shot. I also desperately want to know if it works with the GameCube controller, since Nintendo wouldn't tell us when we played it last time. I'm sure it will, though. I feel like it'd be really weird if it didn't.
Sakurai even said you can play with the GameCube controller for that classic feel, so you can definitely do that. Yeah, he was Sakurai in his own way is very upfront about this stuff. But yeah, I'm gonna configure it because there's 2 buttons now instead of 1. I gotta configure it to make it comfortable. But yeah, I feel like it's gonna feel just like the old times.
Nice. And if you're a fan of that, I think that that's amazing, right? I never was. And I probably, realistically, the demo's probably not going to change my mind, but I'm going into it with as open a mind as I can have. And if it doesn't click, it doesn't click, but I am really happy. I know both you and Brandon are super excited for this.
Yeah, I kind of want to stream it and just let people join in and have fun with me and just see what we think all together. And hopefully we'll get a better impression of it as a collective, audience. I want to be able to just let people know that this is a really special game to a lot of us. That this is something that I still don't know how it happened. I don't know why it's happening, but Sakurai is able to build something with his team that really looked like the kind of game that we and probably him and the team envisioned way back then, and that's just really special to us.
Yeah, and as a creator, I respect the hell out of Sakurai. I mean, that if you love games, then realistically, he's one of the best to do it. So I think that it's a good thing to, I'm glad that he didn't just hop into making another Smash, because I feel like the poor man has been shackled to that series for long enough. I still want to see him go on and do, like a remake or a sequel to Kid Icarus after this. I can wait for another Smash game for a while, but I think I might be alone in that assertion.
Honestly, I still go back to play Ultimate every now and then, and like, you look at my hours now that I can accurately see my hours. I played a lot of this game, and I'm still content with it. That's just my personal opinion, but we don't really need another Smash for a little while, as far as I'm concerned. But as a Switch 2, we'll see one someday. It's just a matter of when.
Oh yeah, I have no doubt in my mind that it's happening. I think that the Switch 2 clearly is selling well enough for now that we don't necessarily have to have one on the immediate horizon. But if we didn't get one by the end of not next year but the year after, I would think something was weird. But yeah, that is like all of our Switch updates. I want to jump over to our mailbag, and if you don't know, you can head over to patreon.com/gvgaming, where for as little as $5 a month, you can join our silver tier, where you can get each episode of The Week in Nintendo early and ask questions like these. This one comes from Azran127, who writes, Nintendo's second quarter earnings are out, with a bunch of explanations about things like the My Mario product line and focusing on Switch 2 development, but what stands out to me is that Splatoon Raiders is the only announced future release that hasn't been given a window, whereas stuff like Pokemon Pokopia is 2026. Do you suspect they jumped the gun on the announcement, and why might they have done so? That's a really interesting question, because I think myself and quite a few other people posited that Splatoon Raiders being announced the way it was meant that it was coming really soon. And that may still be the case. I don't suspect that it'll go through all of 2026. I think Nintendo just might not know. I could have sworn that Splatoon Raiders was rated in some country somewhere.
I think so.
So I think it's more just it's probably closer to finish than we think, and Nintendo just doesn't know where in their release calendar they want to fit it in just yet. But I wouldn't say they jumped the gun. Nintendo has been bitten by that too many times. Most recently with Metroid Prime 4, which took forever. So I don't think we're going to have a delay of that magnitude. I think it's probably just they haven't found the right spot to release it during, and we'll probably find out more in whatever the first direct of 2026 is. That would be my guess.
Yeah, I think especially because we're turning over to a new system, a new console, they kind of want to get people the idea that, oh, these games are in fact coming. Don't worry, there are new titles coming. So they might be releasing or not, announcing some of these games perhaps a little bit earlier than what they have been in the past few years. Is a bit of an exception. Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave does not have a specific release date right now. It's still 2026. We don't know how far into 2026 that's going to be, but that's also kind of in the same line of Splatoon Raiders, where I don't expect really to see anything about that until next year, because we're still occupied with Kirby, Metroid Prime, and then we might see more stuff that we've only heard a little bit about beforehand too. Like, for example, we haven't heard anything else about like Rhythm Heaven since that one direct. There's still some titles that we're still waiting for, and I think Nintendo has a schedule planned out. We're just it's just a matter of dispersing that evenly to keep people, interested in the, atmosphere of Nintendo hardware and software and all that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. One thing that I want to mention, because you and I haven't even gotten a chance to really talk about this, I was so damn excited about Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave getting announced, because you know me, like Three Houses is probably my second favorite Fire Emblem of all time, right behind Awakening. And just seeing Sothis in that trailer, I lost my absolute shit. I was so excited. I can't wait to learn more about this one, especially considering that was also Koei Tecmo developed, and we've seen what they've done in terms of Switch 2 with Age of Imprisonment, but the idea of like a potentially mouse mode controllable Fire Emblem on the Switch 2 running at 60 FPS, it would be very nice. Or even a stable 30 FPS. Fire Emblem probably doesn't need 60 FPS, but I think that there's a lot of potential there.
That's true. I hadn't really considered the fact that this is the first time we're seeing the team work on a game with Age of Imprisonment, and that they might in fact still be working on with Fortune's Weave as they worked on Three Houses. So yeah, that's true. I imagine what we've seen thus far was really just very appealing to me as well, as far as like the cutscenes, the battle sequences, the overall map and everything. We didn't get any idea if it was, mouse controlled quite yet. I imagine it should be. It would be. It makes the most sense for this over like other titles within the Switch 2, like Horizon at this moment. But yeah, I mean, I did a whole analysis of that trailer, just picking apart every little thing, just trying to figure out where could this fit with the Three Houses and the Fallen lore. And I think we're gonna be really, well, I don't know. I want to see more. At the end of the day, I just want to see more and what else this title is gonna feature.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that. As an aside, I just have to mention too, I had a little taste of how good John has it for these directs because I was in Paris at the time when this one went off, and it was just the middle of the day, just a normal afternoon, and I got to watch a direct. I was having a martini when that direct came on.
Must be nice. Waking up at 6 a.m. I'm over here.
I was just in a conference room in a hotel drinking an adult beverage watching Fire Emblem. It was great. Yeah, come on, guys. Just give us one. Like, just one for the Americans. Let us have one in the middle of the day. Just once. Anyway, thank you for the question, Azran. Our second and final question for this episode comes from Larkrin, who writes, not sure if this is being covered in this week's episode, but if it isn't, do you think Nintendo fumbled Age of Imprisonment's marketing? Feels like it hasn't gotten the same love as other Switch 2 releases. And that's a really interesting question, because in a day and age where everything is like targeted advertisements as opposed to just broad stuff, it's really hard to tell how much they are advertising, right? Like, I don't know about you, Daniel, but I don't watch like traditional TV. I don't even have time to watch a lot of YouTube anymore. And I've been staying away from gaming sites because I don't want to read their coverage of the game. So I've been kind of out of the loop, and I don't spend a ton of time on social media any longer. But I will say, in the weeks and months leading up to it, I do feel like I didn't see a ton of marketing, but Zelda traditionally doesn't require much.
Yeah, I mean, they really didn't do much as they normally would, because I didn't even realize there was a demo of this came out until people started telling me like, oh, there's a demo of Age of Imprisonment like a week or two ago. I was like, what? I didn't heard any news about this. The name alone for Legend of Zelda definitely helps to push and sell it, as we mentioned earlier with Pokemon. But the fact that this is like the fourth game where we're visiting this world, Breath of the Wild, Age of Calamity, Tears of the Kingdom, and now this one, people are kind of like it's become its own like side series at this point. People know these characters, people know this world, and yeah, I feel like they could have done more for marketing and for advertisement, but it is Zelda, and there are other games I'm just at the present time more excited about in this current season of games that are coming out. So I don't know. I was gonna buy it anyways. Is the bottom line basically?
Yeah, I think the big thing is Nintendo is doing a good job of making people aware that these games exist, and I think, like you said, they're not really moving the needle a ton with ads. Like with a series like Zelda, and certainly with a series like Pokemon, your mind is probably made up from the minute you see the title whether or not you're gonna buy it. Like, this is a Zelda game, I'm gonna get it. This is a Pokemon game, I'm going to get it. Same with Metroid, right? Like, I don't think Nintendo has been really aggressively advertising, at least not towards me, but and certainly, but where their built-in fan base, where what they call the core user, right? Like the people that they know, we're going to know what's coming out, and we're going to have our purchasing decisions made, whether or not they show us trailers. Like, we're just going to know whether we want to see this game. And so it's very difficult to tell, because I feel like their target consumer now exists in a very different space to people who create gaming content for a living, or even people like you who watch or listen to gaming content. They're going after like undecided parents who need to put a gift under the tree and just kind of know the person they're shopping for likes video games. That's really who ads are for more than anything else. And like when everything's driven by algorithms, it's really hard to say for sure. But I will say that I haven't seen like banner ads across websites. I haven't seen a lot of stuff, but I didn't see that for Legends ZA either. And Legends ZA sold 5 million copies in 4 days. So whatever Nintendo's doing seems to be working. It's just a matter of, probably in 6 months, we'll know how much this game sold. But I find it hard to believe that it will not do well just because it has the Zelda name attached to it. And I know a lot of people who will buy it just because of that. I bought Age of Calamity just because of that, and I didn't like it. And I still bought Age of Imprisonment. So, yeah, I'm an easy mark.
Steve doesn't learn. If he didn't like the first Muso game, will he like this one? I'm glad you do. I'm glad you do like this one more than the last one.
Yeah, this time my ignorance paid off, and I managed to get something I really like out of Age of Imprisonment. But we'll see how that holds up. Till we'll have more coverage, I'm sure, on the channel in the coming days, maybe even a discussion. Maybe we can pull one of those together. But I think that's going to do it for us for this week in Nintendo. Thank you guys so much for watching or listening, whether you're on YouTube, Spotify, or whatever. We really appreciate it. Remember to subscribe to GVG for all things, not just Nintendo, but gaming as well. Ring that notification bell to be first to know when we get new videos up, or do whatever you do on Spotify or wherever else to know when we post new episodes. They go live Saturdays at 9 a.m. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Till we meet again.